Good afternoon or good morning, everyone, depending on where you're from. My name is David Jost. I'm Chief Marketing Officer for Arreva. The folks here on the camera that you're seeing right now, Barbara O'Reilly and Mackenzie Burke-Buckler, who are going to be our featured panelists, but you are in the right place if you are seeing the screen. An exclusive panel conversation webinar, 5 key strategies for sustainable fundraising success as Amazon Smile fades into the sunset. And just a little bit of a hint here as well, even if you weren't participating with Amazon Smile, this is the place to be. You will definitely leave a smile on your face if you don't already have one. So if you want to say hello in the chat box, please do so. Let us know where you're from. Let us know you can see the screen and that you can hear us okay. If you can't hear us okay, you can only maybe see my lips moving. Other folks will jump in and help you out. But if you are having any problems or any issues, we will not really be saying much until 2 p.m. Eastern time here. We're just kind of having people come in. Right now, a lot of folks filing in. We have a really full house, so to speak, virtually today. So it's going to be a great session, very interactive. I will just let you know, I'll be giving a couple of minute warning as well as we come closer to the start time. But in the meantime, a couple of housekeeping things. You should be seeing, I can tell that a lot of people are seeing the chat box, so thank you and hello to everyone. You also can leave questions, answers, comments throughout in the question box, which is part of the control panel. We're all pretty much old hands at this, but I'm just going to mention these things. This session, this entire conversation will be recorded. The slides will be available to you afterwards. We'll be sending those out to you, so feel free to just engage. And if you're not big on taking notes, don't worry, everything is going to be here. But do feel free, if that's your thing, to go ahead and take notes. The big important part is to let us know what you'd like to hear about today, what's on your mind throughout. If anything comes up, pop it in the chat box, pop it in the question box. I will be on the webinar serving as a fundraising expert as well as a moderator, kind of playing double duties. So I will make sure that everything that we have here either comes up organically during the session or during our Q&A period today. So we're scheduled to go about an hour. We sometimes may run a little bit over. Please do stay with us till the end. That's where the fun is. There's fun throughout, but we just got a lot of great stuff in terms of even some bonus sessions, some bonus strategies, etc. So we'll be with you in just a moment. Thank you. Okay, everyone, we're just about ready to start here. I'm going to give one last chance as we have a lot of folks coming in. In the meantime, I'm going to tell you, make sure you're checking the chat box. Our session will be beginning shortly if you want to just test it out. How about this? Drop a title of a song in the chat box that has the word smile in it. I've got a bunch in my head right now, thanks to our conversation pre-game, and earworms that will last forever. So why not just join the fun? We'll be starting in about a minute. This is 5 key strategies for sustainable fundraising success as Amazon Smile fades into the sunset, as an exclusive panel conversation webinar. And when I begin, I will give you a heads up, and then I will actually just do what I like to call just a hard intro so that we have a good recording for you, because today's session will be recorded and provided to you so that you can review it, and share it on demand along with the slides or the presentation from today. So about 30 seconds to start here. Thank you. Okay, here we go. Welcome everyone to an exclusive panel conversation webinar, 5 key strategies for sustainable fundraising success as Amazon Smile fades into the sunset. This is brought to you by Arreva, tech with purpose driven by cause, and MaestroSoft and Arreva company in conjunction with our partners and hosts. And we're looking forward to a really great session today. So I'm going to go ahead and just get us started. As I let you know a little bit, I'm not going to run through this verbatim, what we have in store today. We're going to be doing our welcome and introductions. I'll tell you so that we get this out of the way. I'm David Jost. I'm the Chief Marketing Officer with Arreva. I'm also the moderator and a participant on the panel today, and I'll be introducing you more formally to our esteemed guests in just a moment. We want to hear from you. This is very interactive, and we're going to talk about this whole notion of saying goodbye to Amazon Smile and why there's even more reason to smile with sustainable fundraising success at length, along with some success strategies. There's Q&A throughout, and I'm just going to go ahead and move us right away to the welcome and introductions. And I'm going to let you know that, we have a couple of folks with us here, and all of you are fundraising experts just by virtue of what you do every single day. So please do participate. We'll talk more about that. First off, I'll just go from my left to right, depending which way you're facing. First off, we have a returning featured host here that we worked with a lot, a great partner and friend to Arreva and to myself, Barbara O'Reilly, CFRE with Windmill Hill Consulting. And I'm going to let, Barbara, really just say hello. And I will tell you this, that I just do want to share her background. She has been doing this for a number of years. I'll just leave it at that. And really being able to share a lot about annual fund major gifts, campaign fundraising experience at major nonprofit organizations, including Harvard, including Harvard University, the National Trust for Historic Preservation, Oxford University in England, and the American Red Cross. Her consulting firm, Windmill Hill Consulting, helps nonprofit organizations of all sizes cut through the noise and develop a profitable fundraising strategy that focuses on the resources, skills, and tactics they need, I'm just going to say, to smile more about sustainable fundraising. There's a lot of things there. I just wish you had a more impressive pedigree, Barbara, and all kidding aside. But thank you and welcome. If you want to say hello to everyone, that would be great.
Thanks, David. Yeah, I'm working on it. Delighted to be here once again to talk about this important topic.
All right, terrific. And we're joined by a partner and a longtime friend and also fellow expert, not just on matching giving, but on fundraising in general. She, as you can see, she has a wonderful pedigree as well. There's a little bit of Vanderbilt in there, I know, so we don't want to get into wars on schools, but Mackenzie Burkbuckler is an expert partner specialist with Double the Donation, and she has been a longtime partner with Arreva and so many other organizations out there in helping them do good. So I want to welcome you, Mackenzie, and I hope that I didn't butcher your last name, so please say it correctly if I did.
No, you said it perfectly.
All right, then I'm going to stop there. So hello, and say hello to everyone for us, please.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here today. As David mentioned, I get to work with a lot of different partners in the fundraising space. I get to see a lot of organizations seeing fundraising success. So I'm excited to kind of talk through what we're seeing work today and then what you guys can do to position yourself for success.
Terrific. So we've done our welcome and our introductions of us, but this is really, I'll tell you, I was remarking with our hosts who've been with us before that the chat box, all of these areas take on a life of their own. We expect nothing less today, so please, chime in there and address anything that comes up, any questions. I will be posing some things to you in addition to some more formal polls, but this is about you providing questions, insights, comments throughout. Do it in the chat box, do it in the question box. Don't worry where it is. We'll get to you and we'll address this. But I'm going to begin with a poll that's very much on point that we want to kind of use to talk through things. So the poll, as you can see, is approximately how much was your organization receiving from the Amazon Smile program annually? I don't need the exact amounts. I'm just curious to kind of see where things fall. I've certainly heard some things, you know, anecdotally, and it runs the gamut. We're going to speak to all of this, but we try and weave this in terms of, you know, in terms of kind of the feedback and what was happening here. And I want to do a little bit of math and putting things in perspective as we kind of hit the next session. But so what I like to do is get as much participation as possible. We have got quite a few folks who have answered already. If you have not answered, I'm going to do a 3 count backwards. 3, 2, 1. And now I'm just going to let you know that this is about what I've heard out there. But I'm just going to share this. So I don't know if you have any thoughts, but you know, we will talk more about this. So we're looking at, you know, the vast majority are $1,000 or less. There are some out here that are $10,000 or more, which not only means that that's great. They're in the minority. We'll talk about this, but also those supporters of theirs are spending an incredible amount on toothbrushes and probably a whole lot of other things on Amazon, because the contribution is, or was, I should say, 1/2 of 1%. So if you kind of do that math, just take whatever amount it is that you raised and divide it by 0.005, and you'll see how much had to be spent for you to achieve that amount. So that's great for Amazon. It's good for you. All giving is good, but we're going to be talking a little bit more about that. We've got a lot of folks right kind of in the middle, right? I didn't give real clean breaking points, so you know, I'm not sure where people sit on the piece of that, but you know, any comments about that? You know, Kenzie or Barbara, from your perspective, what you expected?
Yeah, I was going to say it's pretty much in line kind of with what I expected, kind of a lot of people under that $1,000 mark. And I think hopefully we'll get to some ways to help you kind of easily overcome that, you know, and get that back.
Yeah, that's great. And we'll literally talk about that. Like, okay, so let's look at this solution. If you did this, you could do that. I mean, we're not going to be overbearing on it, but I'm going to tell you one, we're all with nonprofits for good. We're for anyone that's helping nonprofits in any way for good. So this is not a bashing. This is kind of putting it in perspective. And I'm going to set the stage for you a little bit here as we have a conversation. So I'm going to say everyone's had some level of relationships and breakups and different things over the course of their life of whatever respect. And I'm going to tell you, when you're in it, it's always good. And you know, sometimes you can get very comfortable with relationships. You know, I think that one of the things that happens, that if you move on for whatever reason and you're trying to get to what's next, you kind of think about, what do I want in my next relationship, or what do I want to build in relationships I already have? The other thing you have to do is kind of get some perspective on, okay, maybe I was looking at this a little bit differently, and I want to kind of understand what this really was. So it's not about, again, it's just kind of looking at it and saying, okay, what was Amazon Smile? I'm going to say it did end now. And I would just tell you that, to just put it in perspective, that Amazon Smile, other solutions that are out there, you know, that are, again, always good to get giving, and they don't necessarily mean you stop doing them with ShopRaise or other things that are out there, but they always have been a vulnerable third-party source of funding. You know, your organization received only 5% of purchases. I noticed when you go to the site now to look at this and see about the Amazon Smile program, which people still might be checking out because there wasn't a lot out to the people who were spending, it has a tagline: customers shop, Amazon gives. It doesn't say Mackenzie Burkbuckler gives as a donor, it says Amazon gives. So it's good for them, and was good to a point, but you know, they've moved on and there's something else that's happening at that point. But at the end of the day, what it was not about was engagement with your organization. So I'm going to ask another question that's not on the poll as we tee into this, and then I'm going to kind of talk about the distinctions between these. I'm going to pose some questions to Barbara and Mackenzie, but let me ask you if you know how many donors were participating in the Amazon Smile program with you. If you know how many, put that number in the chat box. If you have no idea, you know, put that in as well. And this is a little bit of a loaded question. And let me ask you, if you're currently reaching out to everyone who participated in the Amazon Smile program that contributed to giving you somewhere between $1,000 and $10,000 or $200 or $300. And so I'm not seeing a lot of responses, because I'm guessing maybe there are some people in here, but I'm not down at the bottom of my screen either, but never received that. That's right. And you never will. Okay. So that is just the nature of the beast here, right? So Amazon has the data for this. Amazon has all of the contact info. None of this is ever shared. It's the same with most giving programs. I can't speak to everyone. Maybe there's one out there, but there is no ability for you to engage with that person who gave, to know who they are, or there is no way to check. Sabrina, I'm sorry to tell you, there is not a way. So I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but that is just inherent in the piece, right? So one of the unfortunate things is, before we start smiling really big, something to not smile about is that when this program ended, you have no way to reach out to Barbara and say, I'm so glad that you contributed. Can you help replace this? But we've got some great ideas. So I don't know if there are other things about the SMILE program, and I'll leave that open, but I do have a whole bunch of notes here that we kind of gathered collectively, but I'm going to turn it to Barbara and Mackenzie, and I'll just begin with you, Barbara. If you could kind of, people hear buzzwords out there a lot, right? Sustainable fundraising, and it sounds great. I mean, everyone wants, if we're talking about relationships, you want a sustainable relationship. You want one that does a lot of great things. What would you share that you think of, or that that makes sense to you when you talk about sustainable fundraising?
Yeah, it's A, knowing who your donors are, and B, being able to communicate with them. And I should actually qualify that it's not just who your donors are, but who are the people who are interested in your work. So it's your subscribers, it's the people who are attending your events, it's your social followers. It's having a sense of the human beings behind all of the dollars, the volunteer time, the social promotions that, and I mean, like, the social posts, who are kind of your ambassadors and champions. It's having a really good understanding of who those human beings are, and then being able to communicate with them. And that's one of the biggest, aside from the 0.5% piece of this, of Amazon SMILE program. It's nobody had any idea who the donors were. And so this was, in a way, there was no loss of time or resources for the nonprofits, right? It was very passive, and the shoppers, it was also in a lot of ways very passive for them. So they might just put those charity of choices in there when they're setting up their Amazon SMILE, or their account. But then after that, how many times did they think about it, right? They probably didn't. So I think it's so that not knowing who those donors were, to be able to continue to steward and build those relationships, is really where the sustainable fundraising benefit comes into play. It's being able then to communicate on a regular basis, share insights, share thanks and stewardship and recognition in lots of different ways, so that those donors continue to give year over year.
Yeah. I love this notion of passive, Barbara, because I just think of somebody, and I use this, I've got to come up with something new, but buying toothbrushes. I mean, I buy very expensive items as well on Amazon, but when you're doing that, someone's going about that behavior, they're thinking about purchasing that. They're not thinking about your organization. They're not thinking about the impact. And I'm not, I can't get inside someone's head, but it's happening passively, right? So at that point, you don't have the opportunity to say, by the way, would you like to come to our annual gala? Would you like to participate in this? Would you like to share this with friends? So I think those are some key elements. And I hit a couple up here. It's also year round. One of the themes we're going to have here is talking about sustainable fundraising in its own right. It's certainly in comparison to unsustainable or more vulnerable fundraising, but I think also just in the times we're in, we've learned a lot over the past couple of years. And one of those things that I can tell you is that people who were doing year-round fundraising were in a much better position when the pandemic hit to be able to I'm going to say the word that was said all the time. I haven't said in a while now, but pivot, be able to do different things, right? It's also driven by your organization. You're less vulnerable. You own the data, you're able to do those things. But I'm going to turn it to Mackenzie as well, and just what kinds of things come to mind to you about this slide, or just about sustainable fundraising, that you think are really important and what we're looking for in our next relationship.
Yeah, I think Barbara kind of nailed it. It's all about being able to build a relationship with the donor, because if the donor, all of a sudden, their kind of ability to give drops, you still want to have that relationship in place, because maybe they can't give you a financial donation, but maybe, as Barbara said, they can spread word of mouth about your organization online, or they can volunteer at your event. And being able to have that connection sets you up for success with your fundraising overall. Or let's say that their ability to give suddenly skyrockets. You have to have that relationship in place first for them to then kind of increase their gift size kind of in response to that, to your organization. And so I think being able to form those relationships with your donors is really important. And I think something that I read was that a lot of times with Amazon Smile, it wasn't, it was kind of replacing someone giving directly to your organization rather than being like an add-on. It's not that they were like giving to your organization directly and then also giving to you through Amazon Smile. It was kind of replacing that gift that they were giving initially. And so if we're able to get them connected to our organization, reiterate to them, what we're doing and the impact that we're driving, I think that sets you up for success no matter how the fundraising landscape evolves.
Yeah. I think that's interesting too, because that, back to the point of not necessarily knowing who those folks are.
Mhm.
They may or may not be aware directly. They thought you were important, but you didn't have a chance to catch them. And then likewise, if you do have people, and there are some who are doing things with your organization to some extent, but they're also doing that, right? They're sort of thinking, okay, I did that. They aren't realizing that went away because they're still spending on Amazon. They're still doing whatever they're doing, right? They just don't know that it's hitting there. So I think that's important. I think all of this comes together to sort of think, to be thinking about having a lot of different channels, a lot of different things that you can control. And you're not really able to tell your story. I mean, somebody's setting that up to do the donation or a percent of their spend. And at that point, they aren't every time they're making that contribution motivated or, seeing the impact of it. There's no way to follow up with them. There's some points here, I think, in terms of sustainable fundraising that Barbara and Mackenzie both hit on with. It's about cultivation, engagement, retention, right? We talk about retention. I don't know, Barbara, what's the latest word, the latest percent in terms of donor retention or the stats kind of just in a general sense? That's a real bailiwick for you.
Yeah, so it's still about 42% as the national average. And first-time donor retention is 20% or maybe just a smidge below 20%. But we have seen the donor retention numbers going down from 21 to 22. So, and certainly the number of donors is decreasing and the number of volunteers is decreasing. So, this is the absolute point where we have to be focusing on retention. We know this in the business side, customer retention is the number one driving metric for every business plan, or for every sustainable and growing business. So we have to bring that mindset into how many donors can we keep so that they are continuing to support us and also feel more invested and will upgrade where it's possible.
Yeah, Mackenzie, we had a conversation offline too, where you were talking about the notion of, maybe there aren't as many donors, but there are donors, the key is to get people to give more, right? So it's about that engagement, retention. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think that there was a recent report, I think it was an AFP one, that the number of donors is down, but the dollars given is up too. And so I think that just kind of further reemphasizes why we want to kind of retain our donors. And it is kind of a competitive fundraising landscape out there. And so you want to make sure that you're able to kind of cultivate those relationships over time. And I think it all goes back to showing the donor the impact that they can have, showing them that their donation is being put to good use and kind of what results that's driving for your organization.
Yeah. I think that it's great too, the analogy with customer engagement and looking at those pieces, right? There's definitely a correlation. And I think sometimes we sort of forget like what we're doing in real life as customers, what we're doing as donors is something we should be trying to encourage, right? So I think of, certainly with your organization, the more it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? The more you get engaged, the more engaged you are, and then the more engaged you get, right? So it starts to sort of, be a snowball running downhill. And I think that's a good thing. The other piece is everything's about scalable and growth. If you're not growing, you're dying. You've got to be looking at it and saying, how do we continue to grow, right? If you're looking at a program like a Smile program, the only way you could grow would be for people to spend more, and you're not going to go out wearing a billboard to say, please buy more on Amazon, or to get more people to sign on. And that's still somewhat passive. It's certainly a good thing to have as an add-on, but it's not the be all end all. The other thing is that I think it's just like from a customer standpoint, we want to be, let's say, marketed to, or we want to be promoted to or communicated to in a lot of different ways. And we want it to be fun, and we want to feel connected to the cause, right? And that's a difficult piece. So there's a lot of things here throughout. I'm going to tell you that as we move to the next session, which is about the sustainable fundraising strategies, I'm going to tell you that, we're looking into we're staring straight into the sun, and we're seeing a big smile ahead with sustainable. We're going to talk a little bit, about some strategies here. I put 5+ because you can always add an extra one. They're actually way more than that. So I'll just tell you a little bit about the math. Sustainable fundraising is about trying to, do things that are sustainable, but it's also trying to find ways to have efficiencies and bring things together and do more of the right things at the same time. So some things will overlap. We're going to kind of run through that, but I think, in the spirit of it, we're really looking at kind of unwrapping some of these sustainable fundraising success strategies that can help you. So I'm going to go ahead and move to strategy number 1, which is making it easy for donors to give more and engage in multiple ways, anytime, anywhere, right? So this is whatever that might be. And I think we're going to just begin by telling you that I'm going to ask right now. I bet that Barbara, can you hold up your phone? Mackenzie, I don't know if you can. I would think you would. You're in the demo. We're all in the demo, but I'm just saying we got this here, right? So everyone's got a phone. She probably has, has it very nearby. I'm going to tell you that if I had to wager a bet that's a surefire win, everyone on this call, or nearly everyone, has their phone within reach. Or, just looked at it recently, may even have it in their hand as I'm talking right now. You can keep looking, that's fine. We're all multitasking. And if somebody isn't, please drop a note and let us know all about you, because you're the one. So we want to know how that's accomplished, because sometimes it can be frustrating. But the important thing, this is not about products, none of it will be. We show some things here that have some stuff, obviously, that have been done, but this is about having access to your phone. And what I want to talk about here, and I'd love to get some insight on it, is that, we've always been connected to our phones for many, many years now, right? Through the last couple of years, it has become a necessity of just epic proportions. And one thing I like to always point out is that it's not only that people are comfortable using their phones, more comfortable than ever, there's an expectation that you should be able to do things on your phones. In addition to other ways. And the other thing I was just going to share, and this is my topic, so we're a panel if you guys have different thoughts, but we have, you always will hear, and I'm sure as I say this, someone will chime in, and we work with all kinds of organizations and everyone's in different places. So don't profess to say that everything is gospel truth on this, right? But oftentimes we'll hear our donors aren't comfortable with technology. Our donors are not comfortable, are in an older demographic, so they're not comfortable with their phones. So I think if that were ever true, and I question to the extent where maybe we had some perceptions about it, it certainly is very different today. Because over the last several years, if you wanted to communicate with your children, your grandchildren, grocery shop, go have something delivered, communicate, get information, you had to become comfortable with your phone. How many of you were comfortable with Zoom 3 years ago, or even knew that it was something besides a public television show way back in the day? I know where you're going, So, I mean, some of us in the industry obviously are, and many of you were, but I'm just saying how many of your donors, right? How many other things out there, right? It's a piece where everything has changed. And what I'm going to tell you is that it has changed, not just that it's transformed, it's meant more. So the opportunity is greater. So comments on that whole topic as we kind of move to the next, Barbara or Mackenzie?
I would just kind of reiterate what you're saying, that I think we've kind of come to a point where a lot of people are embracing technology. I mean, you even think about, like, you go to a restaurant, you scan a QR code. People have become familiar with that. You can translate that into, you send like a direct piece of mail asking someone to donate, they can scan a QR code and go online. So I think just having those ways where you can blend channels and get people to use the technology that they have in their hand is definitely, a great way to encourage that participation.
Yeah, and I would
Yeah.
just add that, on the previous slide, there were a lot of different options for engaging with an organization, and they weren't all fundraising. So, that's the thing that we want donors to feel comfortable knowing, that they can use. They've got the power of their phone that can do lots of different things. It can be fundraisers, being a fundraiser, setting up monthly giving, setting up peer-to-peer campaigns, making a pledge or gift, being involved, registering for events or volunteering or membership, guest stays. I know that's a particular area for Arreva. So there are lots of different services that we are expecting now to have at our fingertips and being able to do. So having as frictionless a way of communicating with our organizations is essential for engagement with our audiences.
And being able
Yeah.
to be engaged in more ways than one really easily. So
Mhm.
you can get involved in
Right.
all of these, which I think goes back to what we're talking about before of
Yeah.
deepening that relationship and allowing a donor to get engaged beyond a traditional donation in all of these ways that make sense to them.
Yeah.
So it's about the ampersand. So just in case that's a word that's somehow, but in Arena, some people are like, what? It's that little and sign, right? So everything we're talking today is, I'm just going to say, this is something you can take with you. And when it comes to sustainable fundraising, embrace the ampersand. You know, that's a phrase I often throw around, and I think it's important to look at it. It's not either or, it's oftentimes and that's something very important to grab hold of. I would tell you that as we kind of look through some of these other types of things you want to do to make it easy to give in multiple ways, everything's about having multiple ways, because there are people who never liked going to events, who went to virtual events during these times. There are people who thought they liked going to events, who said, sometimes I like going to events, other times I, want to be involved, but I just don't want to get out of my sweatpants, right? I want to be there and I want to be doing, whatever. And so it's about the ampersand. It's not about saying, oh, we're going to get people to do this, and if they don't do this, they're only going to do virtual. People will look at it and say, oh, let's say that I'm an educational nonprofit, right? I have alumni out there. All right, your alumni are likely, going to be very successful people who are all around the globe, right? But they can now be participating in your gala, your auction. They can be bidding. They can be doing a lot of different things. So that's sustainable, right? So I've moved to the next piece, which is just, again, it's just an example of a donation page. But I want to point this out because it's trying to think of these strategies and how they can help you. Again, I'll say if it's a SMILE program or whatever it happens to be, I've heard things, and we're talking real money. $1 is real money, a quarter is real money. So I will tell you that it's been helping you with something in some way. So if you look at something, I've heard this comment, that was, it wasn't a lot, but it was helping us fund our Tuesday afternoons in the park or something, or whatever it happens to be, or after school program, or one of them, right? Well, you can very easily create online donation pages and do things with multiple ways to give, to allow people to give specifically to a cause. And what's more is you'll know they gave that to that cause. So you know what their interests are. We had a piece that I think you remarked about, Barbara, knowing and understanding your donors. But you don't know a whole lot about those donors. Even if you knew their name, you know that they want to support your organization, but you didn't know before that they really are passionate about kids or the after school program or whatever it happens to be. So there's a lot of ways to do that, to track that. And it's also sustainable and better for your organization because you're able to have people also designate things like unrestricted, use it where needed most, right? So that's a piece. Again, jump in, you guys, if you got things. We've got a lot of examples here. This is a good one. I'm just going to tee up because I'm going to turn it over to you guys because some of these sessions we're talking about. Optimizing that, it's sort of like never leave the scene of a giving without finding an opportunity to re-engage people. So if you are at a restaurant and you're ordering food, do you just give your order and then you're done? No, someone's saying, well, would you like to try this? Would you like dessert with that? And if maybe it's not at a place where they're saying that, the person at the counter at McDonald's is saying that, would you like fries with that? So this is akin to that. When somebody's there passionate about your organization at the moment of impact, you want to make sure that you are optimizing that opportunity to make it easy for them, to allow them to participate in different ways, so that you aren't always having to come back with hat in hand, right? So there's some different pieces here, some of which we'll be talking about, but again, we're going to talk about them in multiple places. And I'm just going to share with you that there are ways to optimize that giving moment, and you see some examples here to be able to get more from that, more of a yield from that. So when someone's making a donation, I don't know how many of you have used cover the processing fees. Or any thoughts on that? That's one of the things that's very important to do because there's always some kind of processing fees. You do this in real life, not that this isn't real, but in consumer life, I should say. And you'll say, okay, yes, I'm going to pay the fee for the transaction or whatever it is, or the processing fee. So if you do that, that's something that can raise your yield for a fundraising moment by 4%, 5%, whatever it happens to be, very easily. And about 90% or better of people will leave that box checked if you checked it. And similarly, tribute donations are something that when somebody's giving in honor of somebody, they will give a lot more. We're going to talk about recurring and matching again, but I just got to turn it over to Mackenzie first to talk about any of these kinds of things, and there's always more as well, but on this whole concept.
Yeah, I think something that we talk about a lot is that donors, and you kind of said this, but in a different way, donors are most connected to your organization when they're going through that act of donating. And so you want to maintain that giving momentum. You want to make the moment that they're going through this giving process, you want it to be easy for them so that they can obviously think about their impact rather than thinking about the fields that they have to fill out or submitting that gift. But then once they submit that contribution, that's really when you have this opportunity to like further leverage the relationship, further strengthen it by giving them, like we talked about before, other ways to get involved, other ways to have this impact on your organization, because they're in this mindset where they want to help you and you want to make it easy for them to help you. And so I think, like you're saying, just this idea of even just covering the processing fees for a donor to think about, hey, my whole donation is going to go to making an impact on this specific fund that I wanted to participate in, or something like that. They're going to be really receptive to it in that moment, because this is when they're thinking about all you can do.
Right.
Yeah.
Barbara?
I would just add that there's, these are, all of these options are sort of nudges for our visitors to our donation page. They are not necessarily going to think about really all the donation levels that we would want them to consider unless we put it very clearly as options. They're not going to necessarily think about making this a monthly gift unless we ask them, or a quarterly gift, however we want them to be considering. Tribute gifts, matching gifts, covering the processing fees. Again, these are all nudges to help them think about how they can fully leverage their gift to the organization. But I would also just add that there's, I've seen a couple different studies that talk about the opting in versus opting out, especially for covering processing charges, processing fees. So I would say, it's a little bit mixed. And so some studies I've seen show that having people opt in is more effective than having people opt out. And some studies I've seen the opposite. So you want to really just test this with your audience to see which is going to be the best process for your attempt for your audience, because it might be different. One organization's audience might be totally fine doing opt-out, and you're not going to reduce any possible gifts because they've got to do that. They've got to uncheck that box, and some might be the opposite. So just be mindful that we want to make this as frictionless as possible for our donors. And so keep an eye on when you might have some, we call them abandoned carts, right, in the retail side. So when you have some gifts that aren't completed, figure out a way to be able to follow up with those donors to learn, was there something in that process that caused them to pause or not complete that gift?
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think it's true with everything we're sharing here today. Some of these things will be right for you, others will not. And some of them you may decide are at some point and are not. There is a whole lot of commonality among having the processing fees covered. So it's always a good thing. I don't think people are akin to it. And there are preferences. I think, what you want to think about too is there's certainly some psychology that is, if we harken back to, again, consumer space, right?
Mm-hmm.
About, looking at not just saying I can give in different amounts, but knowing that one of the things that can cause abandonment is I won't make a difference. My gift is too small, or what? And if you see that, no, there's an option up there for $5, there's an option up there for 10. Also, plenty of people who are looking at it, given having the propensity, will see that there's an option right at the front for a $500 gift. We'll look at that, and do something. What I would talk about this whole thing, I sort of call it, and I shared this in my conversation with you previously, Mackenzie, which is, this is sort of like the checkout line. And I just have to tell you guys some confessions to make, that I spend a whole lot more when there are great things in the concession or in the checkout line. But I don't ever buy something that I didn't want, and so I look at that. I'm not buying something completely worthless to me, like, oh my gosh, here's whatever item it is. I would never in a million years want this. I may not want it right at that second, or I may not have thought about it, but it's something that at least put there in front of me at that moment when I'm buying makes it easy for me to engage in. And a lot of times it's a treat. So these are treats. People are there giving because they want to contribute to your organization, because you moved them, because something here interested them. And Mackenzie's going to talk about this a lot, about conversion, so I'm not going to get too much into it. But when you talk about what helps to improve conversion at the moment of giving. Mackenzie, would you like to elaborate a little bit on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk about that a lot later too, but like even just, I think finding ways to reiterate the impact of the donor's gift to them and all the impact they can have. So like we obviously talk a lot about telling a donor, like if your gift is eligible to be matched, it could, you know, your gift could go twice as far. And so I think showing the $5 donor and the $5,000 donor that their gift will move the needle in some way and can have this amplified impact is definitely something that benefits you because they feel empowered. They feel like their gift will make a difference. And we're really seeing that being a key motivator. Donors, especially younger donors, want to know that their gift will actually like enable some sort of good and do good.
Yeah. We move forward here. We talked about the phones, right? Lots of ways to give, lots of ways to get involved. Make it easy to do everything. So make it easy for supporters to register for events. Have a lot of them through the year. They don't have to be big. It's about not doing doing a one and done, right? If something happens where the weather creates a problem with your annual gala and your attendance isn't there, how vulnerable are you at that point? Do things throughout the year, take advantage of it as things change. And also make it easy for people to sponsor and get involved with your events. Another piece that I will just hit here again, which we've covered because we have a lot to get through, but enable donors to give via text anytime, anywhere, right from their phones, right? So, don't everyone rush and take the keyword smile, but if you text smile to 71760 and did that, and you had that number, you could do something, or you could say, smiles for kids or smiles for whatever. You can come up with something that's easy and catchy and someone can do this so someone can make a donation. And I would just tell you, this is definitely an ampersand, it's an and, because you're going to be doing online fundraising, you're going to be doing, fundraising at your events, you're going to be taking checks. But if you are a place, or you are a nonprofit that has a place, or you have a presence somewhere, you should have a short, a keyword and a short code. Text whatever to whatever to be able to give. If you've got folks that are doing things at a volunteer event, give them all a t-shirt that says text something to, whatever number that is. It's a way to be able to do it very easily. And one of the things I saw a lot of during the pandemic, and I've always seen a lot of people have an opportunity where there's a story about that their nonprofits involved in. And they're on screen on the local morning news, or they're on the radio, and they're saying, well, this is great. Well, how does someone get involved with your organization? Well, just go ahead and look us up online and make sure you go to the site and we're all over, right? Or just say, yeah, sure, just text clubs to 1760, and do that, or whatever it happens to be. So these are good pieces. You can also get people at an event very easily before you start the gala. Say, right now we're trying to raise some money because our Amazon Smile program, as you may know, ceased to exist. And I know many of you are giving, but even if you haven't right now, why don't you text blank to blank and let's see if we can raise X amount. I challenge you and do that, right? So there's some good things to be sharing there. And we're going to move to number 2, which is empowering your board members, your supporters to create more awareness, leverage their networks so that you can get an exponential effect. And I'm going to just sort of stop here because there's a lot to talk about. But when we talk about encouraging your supporters are there because they what? Support you, right? They want to help you. And they have friends who have friends, and they have professional networks, they have connections, right? So it's about trying to find ways to make it easy for them to engage in peer-to-peer fundraising, to be able to do personal fundraisers. If you do allow for personal fundraisers, you do peer-to-peer, drop a note, let us know. That's interesting, but I think there's some great things here, and I'm going to just open that topic up in a general sense to Barbara and Mackenzie with anything you'd like to talk about with this whole area.
Yeah, I would say that this is a really nice way for board members to get involved in fundraising without feeling like they've got to hand over their full Rolodex of networks that they know. So often when I'm doing board coaching and training, they think there's a worry that they have to give the names of everybody they know who are going to be blanket solicited by the organization on whose board they're now sitting. So, and which is not at all what they're being asked to do, but that's the perception. So something like this is great because it leverages the social platforms that they're already on. It is a really nice way for them to put the word out and then see who responds without that fear of failure. which will happen when they are asked to go and talk to somebody to make a gift for an organization that's probably most likely doing really great work, but isn't aligned with who that person is and what their interests are philanthropically. So this is a really nice way for them to feel involved. It's fun. You can kind of gamify it in a little way, by having challenges and competitions amongst each other, but it's also an amplifier, so it can spread the word a little bit more easily for that board member to a wider group of people who may not necessarily know about the organization.
Well, for myself as someone who definitely wasn't a math major, I use a lot of analogies. So I like to refer to it as the exponential effect. And when you think about that, getting out to to the networks, if you do this right and you put that out there, and I'm a board member, I'm able to share this out to people who are in my network. And if they choose to, they participate. Once they do, they then make a donation. They then come into the donor community for your organization. And now you're able to invite them to events if they wish, or let them know more about it. And then likewise, you've got some things here where just by nature of letting someone support you, someone may not be able to necessarily donate as much themselves, right? But they are someone who is just very well connected. Board members, oftentimes, some of them, they have an expectation, right? What is it? Give, get, or get off the board? I mean, in the polite way, right? You usually have an expectation that's stated in some way. So it's either you give and or you get dollars from some of your network. This is a way to make it easy. And then likewise, if I'm somebody who really believes in this organization for animal welfare, let's say, and I can give a little bit, but I really, really want to help them, you definitely should on your website have something that says, would you like to start a personal fundraiser, and allow them to do that right away, or find a way to involve them in some sense. Anything to add to this piece, Kenzie?
I would just add that I think when it comes to peer-to-peer fundraisers, you can kind of think of this idea that those donors that give through these campaigns kind of have a dual motivation to give. They want to support this fundraiser who's a member of their personal network, and then they also want to contribute to your organization, ideally, right? So they're establishing this connection with your organization. They're supporting their friend, and so that dual motivation can be really powerful for you to formulate a connection with that donor moving forward, retain them. To circle back to what we talked about before, retention is key, and so it's not only that these peer-to-peer fundraisers help you raise more, it's you can build stronger relationships out of them too.
So to take it full circle again, any of the things we're talking about, you could take and create a campaign around the whole notion of, listen, we have a gap we're looking to fill, or we have a need, or some things continue to change, or just because of these times. You can do peer-to-peer fundraisers around birthdays, bar mitzvahs, anniversaries. You can do a peer-to-peer fundraiser in honor of somebody. You can do things, in terms of some of the other best practices we talked about, and Mackenzie will talk more about some of these, but, if someone's giving, they're giving. So whenever they're giving, you can put the amplifier on it and say, okay, would you like to cover the processing piece? Would you like to make your donation in honor of someone? Would you like to make it a matching gift? Those are some ways to be able to look at that. I have a piece up here I'm not going to dive deep into, but I just will tell you that peer-to-peer fundraising on steroids, if you will, is team fundraising. It's about a way to kind of look at harnessing not just the ability to empower folks, but to also empower groups of people, teams, to be able to raise funds through healthy competition. They have key team captains, team members, fundraisers, and many of us are familiar with the multitude of opportunities there are with walks and runs. If you do a walk or a run, drop a note in here, because I seldom, find anymore that someone isn't doing something like that, or considering it, or even, something around a golf foursomes or what have you. But it's interesting. There are people having success with the notion of competitive spirit for change campaigns, like Change for Children campaigns. We've seen people have great success, 84 classrooms, a bunch of different schools competing, raising the dollars, and everyone being able to get, in the game, and not necessarily individually doing something, but collectively doing something. So again, anything to share there, Barbara or Mackenzie, as I transition, please let me know. I will let the rest of you know that, remember, this is about questions, answers, interactivity. If you want to continue to drop questions in the question box or chat box on anything we're running through, we may not stop at this point, but we'll come back and hit these at the end too. So if you want to put a placeholder, just drop it there. I've got them, several of them already kind of teed up for as we get to that part. Barbara?
No, I have nothing to add. I think I think the team spirit also is just, again, that amplifier. it gets more people involved, and it gets people really looking at this as a fun activity that can be leveraged off of each other.
You see that in action, and it's an opportunity where, like, it literally, I mean, if you're competitive, you're competitive in everything you do. How you do anything, anything is how you do everything is the phrase. So, people will really be motivated by that. But typically within those, there's always ways for everyone to get involved. So you might not be the person leading that team. You may not be the person who wants to, like, rev up the competitive spirit, but you're going to contribute to something because you want to be part of something. So it's sort of like the equivalent of here now we're at Final Four time, everyone jumping on the bandwagon, right? People are winning. So your team's winning. So get people to jump on the bandwagon and help a team raise even more money. We're going to talk about one of my favorite strategies tying into everything, because it's near and dear to me in a different aspect of life. And that is the notion of recurring giving campaigns. And I would tell you, we're really we're in a place where things are done by subscription or just by, people setting things up and automating them. We don't want to have to always come back and think about it. And I would just tell you, if you are, someone who uses streaming media, you probably have multiple subscriptions. You are not coming every month to subscribe to a service, but you do watch it, you enjoy it. Oftentimes, it's really nice to know it's just there. If you have to come back every time and make a decision, you might not make the same decision, but you're still going to engage and enjoy it. I think there's a lot of things we set up where we're accustomed to saying, yes, let me go ahead and check this. So I'm not going through the process, having to pull out my credit card, having to do this other piece, make a donation, etc. And so recurring giving, it's something you want to activate. And what we mean by recurring giving, it might be monthly, it might be taking somebody who's made a donation. You want to say, would you like to make this a recurring gift? And then you designate the frequency, the amount, etc. But you also can see the impact. If I do this for $10 a month, that's $120 a year. That's motivating. It's going to cover the cost of art supplies for one member in this example that I'm showing. But someone might take a look at that. And I would just let you know, it's very, very important, because then it is a springboard for being, and this is where I want Barbara and Kenzie to really jump in, because the notion of having this purposeful reason for someone to be giving on a monthly basis allows you to recognize them, to be able to have them feeling like they're there all the time and doing more than they would otherwise. But I would just share with you that the factoid, which these always are a little bit different, but recurring givers typically give as much as 5 times or more the amount of a one-time donor on an annual basis. And oftentimes, the only difference is that they were asked to become a monthly giver. But, the math is there. It just makes it easy. They would have given, they would be much more inclined to give. And also, they could spread their donation over the course of a year. But any thoughts on recurring giving, comments on this, and the notion of how it might help improve donor engagement, retention, elevating giving?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that that recurring donors have a 90%, an average 90% retention rate. So that's, when I shared the stat before about the average nonprofit donor retention rate is about 42%. So right there, it's showing that people who are subscribing for monthly gifts are generally sticking around. That does not mean, however, that we can sit back and say, oh, well, they're, it's on autopilot. Once they put the credit card in, there's one and done. They're not even thinking about it. The reality is that we still want to steward and must steward them in the ways that we would regular, kind of one-time gift donors, because these donors have been shown to give more and to give additional gifts outside of that monthly recurring gift. So I think there's that, but the other piece is that by setting up a recurring gift allows them to give more than they would have in that one-time gift. So, if you've got a giving society that's $1,000 or whatever it is, you can invite somebody to join that, and they might not want to give $1,000 in a credit card charge or a check. But spreading it out over 12 months, sure, that might make it a little bit easier. And then they're stretching in ways that they wouldn't have previously done. I don't know, Mackenzie, you probably have some thoughts too.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that stewardship piece is really key, and acknowledging different milestones in this recurring giver's journey. So if they've been, they've given this X amount over the course of the year, acknowledging that and telling them that it's actually driving impact, that monthly $10 that you might not think is really significant is creating this huge impact, and reiterating your appreciation for them along the way, I think is really important. And then just that idea of allowing them to spread their gift size out over a longer period of time, that can help you reach like younger donors who don't necessarily have maybe that ability to give a lot up front. So helping donors, like as we've said throughout, find ways to give and that makes sense to them, and reiterating kind of your appreciation for them along the way helps with acquisition. It helps with retention. It's the sustainable fundraising theme that we keep going back to.
Yeah.
You know, the donor recognition piece is key, right? It's ways to make people feel special and connected to your organization. So, you know, I've seen, and everyone's a little bit different, right? Because all donors are important, right? And people can always do it. You always want to make sure you're finding ways to make it important. But, you know, sending something at the end of the year, a very special letter to say, you know, here's something to a recurring giver. You know, you gave $200 over the course of the year. Because of your $200, this happened. And by the way, this is good with one time, right? But you're going to have more of an impact. Being able to share that messaging, being able to do things like recognition in events. Maybe you have special seating or a little ribbon or a little, you know, dessert that comes out specifically to them. You know, you got to gauge, you got to read the room and understand where that's going to be important. But there's a lot of ways to do that. And you can do all of the strategies with recurring giving that you can do with any giving. Okay, watch this segue, Mackenzie. So, for example, elevating your fundraising through matching giving. And so I'm going to let Mackenzie lead us through this. But I would like in the meantime, if you do any kind of matching giving campaigns, mention it, solicit it, whatever, let us know in the chat box.
Yeah, I think that there are obviously a lot of different types of matching gifts out there, but I think whatever kind of form they take, obviously they kind of motivate donors because it's a donor's getting to think about the ability for their gift to go twice as far. And so I think this first one we have up here is just matching giving challenge campaign. So maybe you have a donor or a corporate sponsor that kind of agrees to match any donations during like a time-bound campaign as they're coming in. And so maybe this major donor of yours says, for every $10,000 you raise in the next, or if you raise $10,000 in the next 3 days, like I will match that. Of course, that's really powerful because it can create this sense of urgency. We're leveraging that collective action, that, you know, social proof a little bit that we were talking about before. And it's kind of course, sustainable because you're really getting 2 gifts for the cost of 1. And so I think a lot of organizations see these matching giving challenge campaigns able to motivate donors not only to donate, but to donate like now. It creates a very big sense of urgency. And I think that that's really key with this kind of campaign that we have here.
Yeah, this is I mean, this could be the thing where somebody simply is, you know, being able to look at this campaign where they're saying we're going to do a go special, right? Give one, you know, get one, or give one, however you want to look at that, right? There's lots of ways to do that, but that could happen. That oftentimes can happen spontaneously. I've seen this happen at live events, for example, where someone will say, right now, Mackenzie has just stepped up and said, for everyone that makes a donation in the next 10 minutes by raising, you know, the paddle or doing whatever, she's going to match. They're going to match this gift. That's still matching giving. It really increases the impact. And it goes a lot further than if that person just said, I'm making this one big donation. So it's about finding how you position things as well. You know, we've got, you know, I'm going to move forward to the next piece. We've got a lot to go through here, but then let's move on forward to the one that people are probably most familiar with.
Yeah. And so I think corporate, whereas those are kind of time bound and sometimes are like maybe not accessible to all organizations, I like to talk about corporate matching gifts because any nonprofit is eligible for these corporate matching gifts. You probably have donors that qualify for them, and it's obviously something that's available year round. So you have the ability to amplify those recurring gifts that we were talking about. You have the ability to amplify those individual donations, whether they're $25 donations or $20,000 donations, you know, everything that we've kind of talked about. Just to, in case we need some background to give like a brief overview of it, it's what I'm talking about here is just like you have a donor who works for the Home Depot. They donate to your organization. The Home Depot would then also donate that same amount to your organization. Of course, there are a lot of nuances in these kind of programs too, but that's kind of the basic idea here. And I think that's something that we often see is that people don't realize, nonprofits don't realize maybe how robust these opportunities are. I think we have that number here, like 26 million individuals work for companies with these programs. Of course, that means that probably everyone on this call, you have a matching gift donor in your donor base, or you can reach a match eligible donor. And so like with the matching gifts that we were talking about before, this is kind of that BOGO deal, right? You're receiving 2 gifts for the cost of 1. That's really sustainable. Your kind of solicitation efforts, whatever marketing you're putting in to reach your donors, is going really twice as far as kind of the opportunity you have there.
Yeah, I think that's the piece here, and we kind of talked about the math, right? So it's this one's pretty easy, right? So if you receive $500 from the Smile program, and you were able to implement matching giving, you really just need to come up with enough gifts that are going to be matched at the $250 level. So that's and again, do the math beyond that. But it's pretty interesting way to look at it. What are some
Yeah.
of the other benefits of matching giving?
I think that we actually see, and this goes back to donor psychology, if a donor knows, and I think if you put yourself kind of in the shoes of a donor, like, oh, if I give $25, it will actually turn into $50. Why don't I give $30 so that it becomes $60, right? And so a lot of times if a donor knows their gift will be matched, they kind of increase the size of that contribution. I think the other thing is that like hearing you could have twice the impact, hearing you could have amplified impact makes you kind of listen to or respond to this organization's kind of message to you. It gets you to convert and submit that donation now, again, creating this sense of urgency that we talked about with those matching giving campaigns. But then I think kind of the biggest thing that we have here, it's something that we were talking about before as being important to sustainable fundraising, is having those stronger donor relationships. And we know that like oftentimes gift size kind of correlates with how connected this donor feels to your organization. So if they get their gift matched, you have not only this additional touch point with the donor where you're able to kind of reiterate to them what their gift is doing and what it's enabling, but also, they're able to kind of elevate their impact over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, I mean, it's pretty straightforward to get started with matching gifts. I mean, just kind of summarizing how, like, it's easy as 1, 2, 3, and actually there's 4, but whatever, right? So, talk us through this.
Yeah, I would say that the biggest thing with corporate matching gifts is just that a lot of times, like employees of these companies, donors aren't aware that they qualify. So if you can kind of just be a little bit proactive in communicating the opportunity, reminding them that it exists, positioning matching gifts as a way to give back. I know we talked about before kind of this flexibility and making it easy. So if you show the donor they have choice, they can get their gift matched. That's a form of giving you accept. And then in terms of like actually driving that match to completion and identifying match opportunities, I think just asking your donors where you work is great, not only to drive matches to completion, but also to kind of nurture the relationship over time. And then, helping donors navigate their next steps because they might not know. They might know, hey, I work for Home Depot and I'm eligible for a match, but what do I need to do? And so if you can answer their questions, that obviously helps.
And technology can make it easy. We have an example here. I mean, one of the things that I love, and I know a lot of you expressed that you used, double the donation or, are familiar with it, but it's at the point of impact and making a gift. I would love you to talk more about this conversion point, because if someone's here making a donation and they're thinking, I don't know if I want to, how does having the ability to engage with the automated way of trying to look up all of the steps and getting fulfillment on the path play into better conversion?
Yeah, I think that it's all about kind of, Barbara mentioned this before, we don't want donors to abandon our form. So we want to get them thinking about matching or thinking about this possibility to have double impact, but in like a really seamless way so that they're able to think about the impact that will drive over time. And I think just making things easy, whether it's matching gifts or just submitting a gift in general, using technology to make it easy for the donor to press contribute so that they're able to do it quickly and while it's top of mind is key.
Yeah, this is important, right? Somebody's there, they're thinking, they're at that moment, back to earlier scenario, they're thinking, I'm going to give $25, maybe it's not enough. And they go, wait, let me take a look and see if my employer would match this gift, because now I'm making 50 and I really want to make a difference, right? So that's key. Or maybe now that they're matching, I'm going to give 50 and it's going to be 100. There's a whole bunch of psychology happening there that we don't have time to get into, but we're going to give you a chance to connect with Mackenzie, as well as Barbara directly, afterwards. Those are great things to bring up as well. They have a wealth of information. So success strategy number 5 as we move forward is about live and hybrid benefit auction, events or other types of events with professional benefit auctioneers. I'm going to kind of run through this because there's a lot that can happen here that we've already covered. But I'm just going to tell you that, live is alive and thriving, right? And it doesn't mean that hybrid isn't part of that. It's not alone. It's in combination with virtual elements. Things have gotten bigger. We've really had a much bigger room. You're not limited by the venue size anymore. Lots of people can get involved, and it's about finding lots of ways to bring people together. People are, we're seeing this. I don't have a solid research study, but anecdotally, and from what I'm hearing from across the community, is that people are really enthusiastic when they're out at live events, those who want to attend, and they are giving more than ever. You know, even during these times, they're very generous because they're very thankful to be out humaning, I like to call it, and to be engaging, and they're very connected to the cause, and they're glad to see, you know, that there's an opportunity. Also, it's a way of letting them know, hey, we're here, we still need your help, we're still making a difference. It's very, very important. I would tell you, we talk about the importance of, you know, these are benefit auction items, auction events, excuse me. It's important to be working with, you know, professional benefit auctioneers if you're doing auction events, because it's very different than auctioning off a car. There's a lot of different things that can happen, and there's a lot of best practices that can happen at your gala, your golf fundraiser, other places. If you're doing an auction or something similar, you could do something that I've heard is a great strategy that people have looked at for replacing the dollars that they no longer get from Amazon Smile, is a raise the paddle. But being able to do that with a electronic means, as you can with some of the devices and some of the things we're showing here, really takes that to the next level. Because a raise the paddles, you know, you're collecting the money or you're passing the basket. You've got the money, you've raised it, but you're not necessarily to re-engage and do all of those other things you need to do. So there's a lot of things you can do with raise the paddle, 50-50 auctions, mobile bidding, to just bring life and excitement to a lot of different things that you do there. So I don't want to jump too far ahead of that, but as I'm pausing here, just if there's any comments, anything I've just shared here, Barbara and Mackenzie, please jump in.
Yeah, I would say, you know, for all of these topics, what, you know, the theme is that it's ease of use, it's multi-channel, it's accessibility, and it's meeting our donors where they are. So whether it's on social channels, whether it's in-person events or hybrid, on a phone or a tablet or a desktop, or old-fashioned analog or print pieces, it's finding ways to connect with and keep our donors engaged by providing them the and most importantly, the information of how their gifts are going to make a difference.
Yeah, it's important.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got questions and answers just ahead. So please hang with us here. We are certainly, if you have to go, you have to go, but we're going to engage here and share some additional ideas. So I'm just going to ask you, please put things in if you have any thoughts, any comments. I've got a couple of questions here teed up for when we hit that part in just a few seconds, but I'm going to share with you that the bonus section here is the ultimate sustainable fundraising success strategy. Whoever it happens to be, you know, I have a decided interest, right? So I've kind of my disclosure, but I would say whoever you work with should be the right partner in technology, because it makes a difference. And when I say partners, it's the Barbara O'Reillys of the world. It's the Double the Donation, you know, it's Mackenzie. It's people who are committed to good that are going to help you find ways to do things better, to do more. And so, you know, we are just one of those, and we really feel like we offer a distinctive advantage in many ways. We've been vetted and approved by many national partners, as well as local chapters and organizations of all types. And we are, so someone to say, make the content slides larger. They're at full size right now, but you should be able to drag your screen, but you'll also be receiving a full copy of this. So that's the best I can help you with right now, Susan. So I hope that helps, but it is at full screen right now. Serving the nonprofit industry for more than 30 years. We've been helping across all sectors. We have raised literally billions of dollars through live, virtual, hybrid events, galas, golf fundraisers with Arreva and MaestroAuction and Arreva company. And we're built exclusively for nonprofits. Our flagship product is ExceedFurther. It's not a sales pitch. I just tell you, it's about bringing everything into a unified database and a fully integrated automated solution with the ability to have a 360-degree view of your donors, your supporters, your board members, everything you're doing. It's a holistic view. It's not unlike what's happening in consumer marketing and other places out there. It's, you know, and what we're doing with our lives. We're trying to find ways to bring things into consolidated fashion. We have here a list of all the different kinds of things we've talked about, many of which we can provide, as well as they're all mobile responsive. And MaestroSoft is a company. Actually, I would just tell you, got to give a shout out, because MaestroSoft is a Arreva company, and with our MaestroSoft and Arreva company during the pandemic, we literally helped nonprofits thrive, not just survive, and be able to pivot. I just said it twice for the most I've ever said it in a week for probably the last couple of months, but this is an important thing. We help them do virtual, we help them do hybrid, we're helping them. We provide professional benefit auctioneers with, you know, literally decades of experience, as well as services from soup to nuts to help you with the event. So it's all mobile responsive. And again, a lot of the services there that you can take a look at. I'm going to tell you that one of the things I do want to share with you is that if you are interested in learning more about any of this or just any of the ideas that we have here, I am going to basically just put up a poll right now to let you know if you are interested in having this is a consultation, a demo, it's not a sales pitch. Could be 5 minutes if you want to talk with us, if you want to learn more, if you want to say, could I take a look at that peer-to-peer? Could I hear about text to fund? Or like, oh my God, I just realized I have an auction next week. How can you help me? But I think we still can. I don't want to put words in our mouth, but we can certainly help you do something, right? No matter what you're doing. And so we can help you 5 minutes, half hour, you set the stage. We can show you solutions, but more often we can show you organizations just like you that are having success, because this is a community. So I'm going to leave that up for a little while as we move forward to the questions and answers. And one of the questions I'm going to tee up here real quick came in from someone just saying, what do you think? And I'm just going to say that I'm reading it verbatim. What do you think of the potential of the donate now, pay later phenomenon? And that the phenomenon is not my words. I've heard it out there. I would tell you, we are, there's a very mixed jury out there, right? In terms of that, it's about incurring debt and trying to find a way to have capital come to you right away. But I don't know. I'm going to turn this over to to greater experts than myself for any thought on where this stands in the industry and what your thoughts are around it. And we certainly all can weigh in. Barbara?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be really blunt. I'm not a big fan of it. I think for all the reasons that you've just described, David. I think it's sending the wrong message around the responsibility of philanthropy and what we're asking donors to incur, right? So,
Right.
And also there are all sorts of other ethical and sort of technical questions around who gets the credit, how do they get the credit, who, and so, and how we can then continue to build those relationships. So I would say explore it with great caution.
Yeah. Everything's worth looking at. Kenzie, anything to say about that?
I like Barbara's point, explore with
Yeah.
caution as with everything. I just think that, seeing if it works for you, it might make sense for some organizations and not others. Like look at your donor base and evaluate how that could work for you. I think that that's kind of what we've been discussing throughout.
Yeah.
As you're exploring with caution, I would put my 2 cents in beyond that, which is just building on it, which is your nonprofit is about your brand, about your reputation, about ethics, about trying to find a way to come across and to respect and engage with your donors. These are your supporters. These are people that you are appreciative of. You're grateful for their support. And there are a lot of ways that are a tendency to find ways to kind of like get the money, right? Which obviously we need to do to fulfill the mission. But just again, proceed with caution with that, because there also are issues. What happens if somehow there's an issue with collections or whatever? I believe there already exist a lot of ways. Initially, I'm always subject to change. Someone drop me a note, we'll figure it out, right? But my initial thought, I go with instinct, is there are a lot of ways right now to make it easier for somebody to give in some way. If they can't give money right now, they can volunteer. If they can get money from their peers or from other people out there through a campaign, they can get involved in just doing something a little bit over the month. Those are all ways to get to kind of like give a little now, pay more later, do it. And of course, let us not forget about pledges. There are a lot of great things out there that already exist. Sometimes we reinvent it because it makes for a good app for a new company out there, right? So just be cautious. I'm going to share with you, please continue to put in questions, okay? Because I want to tell you right now, we're always here. We're with you for good. One of the things I had on our previous slide was that, when we talk about that fundraising consultation, we have a phrase we say, we're with you for good. It doesn't mean we're stalking you or following you around, or we're never going to go away. We aren't going to go away. We have retention. That's just the end of the industry, but we are with you for the good you do and helping you to do that better. So obviously we're all in business and we're all finding ways to be able to continue to do what we do. We sell software, Barbara sells consulting, there's things that are out there and it's all for good. And that's a great place to be. We're here to serve. There's nobody being paid to be on this session today. All of you are here helping to serve. And likewise, if you want to talk further, stay in touch with Barbara. I'm going to put up another quick poll here. Or just a quick question, or with Mackenzie, which I'll share that as well. I'm going to ask you to just respond in here. There's a couple of options you can choose. Yes, I'd like to stay in touch with Barbara, with both Barbara and Mackenzie. I won't tell them who says what, so answer whatever you want. I'd like to only stay in touch with Barbara at this time. And I would say, if you want to that's more relevant to you. If you want to only stay in touch with Mackenzie, because that's what you need right now, absolutely. You can always get to them. Their information is here. And I've also, just so that I'm fair, I shared double the donation and Mackenzie's information. If you'd like to only stay in touch with Mackenzie, indicate that. And if you don't want to stay in touch with anyone either at this time, you can always do that afterwards. You can always reach out to us, let us know. I'm going to give you one more chance after we finish here to be able to, sign up for if you want a fundraising consultation. If I shut this down and you miss it, put it in the chat, say, make sure I stay in touch with Barbara or I stay in touch with Mackenzie, right? Those are important things. So I'm going to count down 5, 4, 3. Okay, I just had about 7 people respond. So I'm going to just let you do it here for a minute while I do it. So in a moment, I'll shut it down. Please respond. The sooner you do that, the sooner that little box goes away. But double the donation is here. This is kind of what they do. And, we've got those pieces in terms of tips and advice. So now we're back to the Q&A. So if you've got questions, comments, thoughts, please let me know. And certainly as I'm teeing these up, Barbara or Mackenzie, if you've got things you want to share that you often are asked, please do so at this time. And I think Barbara, I know, had some other commitment that just dropped here, so I'm going to share her information. I'm going to speak for her as well. But if you have any questions that have come up, I know that we did have a question that came up, and it was in different ways, so I'll just phrase it to you. Mackenzie, what are kind of the rules around matching giving when it comes to recurring gifts or memberships or pledges? Are they different all the time, or are there matching opportunities available for those kinds of things?
Yeah, there definitely are. It does differ from company to company, like most things with matching gifts, because companies can kind of set their own parameters and guidelines. Like matching gift programs aren't a one size fits all, but recurring gifts are pretty much usually eligible to be matched. It's just a matter of like when the donor needs to submit that match request, right? So if the company says that every time a donor donates, they need that match request to be in within 3 months, maybe this recurring donor that's giving to every month has to submit that match request a couple times a year, whereas other companies just require match requests at the end of the year, and so that donor might just submit it as a lump sum at the end of the year. So again, there's little nuances, but there's ways to couple matching with all of these things that you're kind of thinking about. Events too, like sometimes the tax deductible amount of a ticket will be eligible to be matched. You can get matches for those additional contributions at events and things like that. And so I know that there was a question in there about how to find companies that have matching gift programs. And I would encourage you to there's a lot of resources online that are free that you can look at some of the top matching gift companies and see if maybe that overlaps with your kind of donor base.
Yeah. So Mackenzie, you mentioned something to me the other day too, about like in your own backyard and with your donors and talking about people. Tell me more about that, like in terms of finding companies.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times just looking for companies near you where probably a lot of their employees are interested in your organization. You can see if they have a matching gift program in place, or if they don't already, if they'd be like interested in getting involved with that, or even if it's not matching gifts, like maybe a company near you, a lot of their employees are donors to your organization. Would they be willing to do like a fundraiser or a volunteer event at your organization for a day or something like that? So I think leveraging corporate support from companies in your backyard where their employees are living and working is definitely a good opportunity to kind of have sustainable fundraising practices and diversify your revenue kind of over time.
So I want to tell you, we have some questions here, and one of the things that came up was, what if I didn't answer on the poll questions? I want to still stay in touch, or someone else in my organization may want to. Absolutely. I mean, we're here. We're with you for good, remember? So reach out to us, reach out to, Arreva.com, send a message back. You're going to all receive an email with the recorded on-demand version of the webinar. You're going to receive the slides, take a look at them. We all have websites we publish. We are engaged in the community, and we're here to help you in any way we can. I am going to tell you that, in terms of Barbara O'Reilly, she is phenomenal. She had to jump, like I said, she's in the process of helping someone for good. And so, but she has dedicated her time, and she's just such a great partner. We've worked with her on many, many sessions, many of which are available on Arreva.com in our educational webinar resource section. You can go back and look at the on-demand versions. So thank you to Barbara. I want to thank Also, Mackenzie, who has been double the donation, and Arreva have had a long partnership. Mackenzie and I have been working together. She is someone who is so dedicated to cause, and it's inspiring, and she has a wealth of information. So not just about matching giving, but about everything, right? And related to fundraising. I don't know, maybe about everything, but Mackenzie, if you have any parting thoughts or anything that you want to share, or any thank yous as well, I'm going to turn it to you for a moment before I do the final round.
Yeah, I would just say thank you for kind of coordinating this today. I hope that every kind of organization on this call was able to gather something from it. I think that kind of the theme that we hit on throughout is just finding ways to build relationships with donors is really key to that sustainable fundraising, and making sure that we're offering donors multiple ways to get involved and in ways that make sense to them is key. You know, we don't know how the fundraising landscape will evolve, but I think by implementing some of the strategies that we kind of talked about today, you can position yourself to weather any of those changes and succeed in the long term.
Okay, and I'm just going to tell you, I saw a question here from someone that I think raised 34,000, which is not the norm, but I would never tell someone not to do something that's working. I hope, in terms of this organization, I'm going to answer for you that you also see things through sustainable fundraising. If you want to get on a session with us, we're happy to share with you our wealth of knowledge about other resources. I know of some out there, ShopRaise, others. I can't think of them, but a pretty simple search. I know that Target organization does a fundraising campaign where you can donate a part of it. They're all going to have the same kinds of characteristics, but I would definitely augment, right? So go ahead and get the secret, get that piece of it, have that, that little condiment packet or a bigger condiment packet, but make sure you do other things. But those are just a couple of examples. I hope that's helpful. Again, no benefit to us from that standpoint, because we're all about good. So I always want to make sure I serve someone in any way I can. So thank you for joining us. I want to give my last thank you to everyone who joined us and spent the time today. True to form, the chat took on a life of its own. I haven't even been able to see every single piece, but we are here. We'll be continuing to do more. We work with our partners. Anything that you need, feel free to reach out to us. My email is david.jost@arreva.com, and it's also easily found on all of the information that's going to reach out to any of us with anything that you need. And you know what? I would tell you that hopefully we have brought a smile to your face, because there's a lot that you can be doing. And it's true to form. I'm sure many of you are doing many of these things. There's always more to learn and do and grow, right? So thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and leave the chat box open if there's anything you want to share, just so that we capture it. And but we're going to go mute, or we're going to go on mute, and then we're just going to basically let this kind of close out at this point. So thank you, and we'll see you next time. Oh, no, I'm sure that. It's